I forgot steps. Didn't get off the couch in time. Woke up at 6:30. I don't have a morning routine. So I woke up at 6:30 and I didn't have a first move. The last episode of Better Call Saul is a black and white allegory for the process through which the creative individual might join in on a very cool criminal conspiracy to dance through life while taking what isn't yours. You know why? Because good artists borrow and great artists steal. That's an allegory that Better Call Saul is directly playing with. And how do I know it? Because I know it. Because I feel it in my heart of hearts. Because it resonates to me. Yeah, sure, I can explain to you, Suede. Thanks for asking. The Barracuda meme is a joke. It's a meme that I forced. It's a joke that I wrote in 2021 when I was in a similar spot to where I'm at right now. Like, couch locked, worried about my ability to provide for my family, attacking myself for what that implies about me, but not attacking myself fruitfully, just wallowing in anger turned inward when it really could be turned inward and slightly to the side. What's really tricky about the movie Fight Club is that it's the same as the song I by Kendrick Lamar, right? Because at the end of Fight Club, he has to take a shot at himself that's not actually a shot at himself. He has to put a bullet in the back of the head of the bully. It's a song. It's Fight Club is the same kind of movie as Revolver, right? These are movies where people have to battle their ego. They have to encounter how their shadow self, right? The full aspect that makes them a human, right? Because as Doechii says in her new music, we're not really complete without our vices as artists. But that whole multifaceted part of you, that's the good stuff and the bad stuff. It's the facts about where you never miss, as well as the facts about where you miss almost all the time. That's like all of who you are, and I think that there's this game that the ego plays to hide half the story. Thanks, kiddo. Appreciate you. What you got? Cereal?
Yeah.
All right.
I was wondering if you enjoyed the Hello Kitty game so far.
I did. I got 3 bronzes for like the island parkour challenges.
Oh, you got some challenges?
I did some challenges, yeah, and I picked up some items and I did the gift delivery, and then I had to charge the iPad some more. And now I'm doing a little morning stream from the couch because I'm not in my habit of doing it from the desk after this last month. Love you, kiddo. So yeah, there's like I don't know. People talk about the shadow self, right? The shadow self isn't the same thing as the ego. And I think that shit's tricky, cuz like the ego is kind of, to me, like okay, so I'm trying to approach something in the spirit of doing a good podcast episode so that I can get some of these uploaded to YouTube. And also, like, I know I'm doing it wrong even in this moment, because like I'm still doing this from my couch and this isn't it. And I'm just trying to go through the motions until I feel it. And then when I feel it, I'm gonna keep moving, and you'll see the motion change a little bit. This is routine as armor, right? Being able to anchor to performing the task and then kind of behavioristically backing into the genuine, earnest feeling of excitement about it. As somebody with ADHD, when I fall off of a task and I come back into it, there's a lot of self-blame. And so the self-pride of having stuck with a ritual is itself empowering. I think that sometimes people worry that if they just do something because it's time to do it, they take themselves out of it, right? Like, if you just say please and thank you because you're supposed to, aren't you kind of diminishing yourself? Like, what's the real you? What words would the real you say other than please and thank you? Like, isn't please short for if you please? Don't you need to come up with your own way to say please? And actually, no, you don't. That's the miracle. That, like, there's this whole array of emotion that's like shorthanded in this one word. And if you know how to say that word in your language that you speak, you don't have to use the brain cycles on that part. So there's good streamlined efficiency that gives us the confidence that we're fully human and we're doing it right, or right enough, right? And so if you get up in the morning and you have a chore habit, and the first thing that you do when you get up is you do some chores, that sets up a whole different day for you and your brain and your dopamine as an ADHD person. I'm just speaking for myself, than it does when you get up and go, the first thing I'm going to do today is make an excellent, artistically coherent video that includes a joke about how Buddha's not short for barracuda. Barracuda reach a maximum length of 5 to 6 feet. Siddhartha Gautama stood over 6 feet tall, so if anything, Buddha's long for barracuda. And also you talk about the importance of doing chores. These are incompatible activities. They're not even the same fucking genre. This is how insidious the ego actually is. Hey, let me get up and perform my readiness to do the thing that I could have done in the same amount of time. Who's it for? Oh, well, I need money, so I have to be on TikTok. Well, why do I have to be on TikTok? Well, because I don't have a day job right now. This is it. I need to find a way to get direct support so I can pay the mortgage. The mortgage is a day late, and it's more than $1 short. And $1 at a time, I know that people will eventually go to my Bandcamp and they'll buy my music. Okay. But, like, what does that have to do with getting the chores done? If you had a day job, wouldn't you have the same struggle to get the dishes? Like, isn't that still just a between you and you thing? Whatever amount of money you have in your bank account, it's hard to get up in the morning when the alarm goes off. It's hard to make yourself do the first thing that you know you need to do that you don't want to do. And I think it's very, very possible, particularly if you're a professional artist, particularly if you have the privilege of being able to work from home, that you encounter how shitty of a group project partner your ego always has been. And the difference is that now you don't have other people to cover for you, to help you hide yourself from yourself when you're being lied to by yourself. So I get up in the morning, having spent yesterday so excited. Oh, I made the YouTubes. I scheduled all of my podcast episodes. But that's not all of it. You got to schedule the podcast episode. Then you have to be sitting in the chair to do a professional podcast episode when it's podcast episode time. Otherwise, you have a difficult decision to make. Oh no, I'm still on the couch and it's 9:14. And I scheduled the podcast for 9:15. Well, since I scheduled it, I can at least have this partial success, which is a podcast episode that's being recorded from the couch because 9:15 came before I got up off the couch. When I ballparked it last night, I'd be like, surely I'd be up and about. I'll have gotten 2 chores done. It'll be easy for me to transition from a feeling of a guy who has not been a cipher in the family task doing, but instead I've been a positive integer, even if it's just a single number change. But no, there's no dishes cycled or started. There's no laundry running. It's the same laundry that I folded yesterday that's sitting in the same spots on the couch. I didn't put it away. And there's still a faint smell of dog piss coming from the carpet here because my little dog runs around and thinks that the ottoman feet are like a bigger dog's feet for him to pee on or something. And so I have to do some serious carpet cleaning still. And the thing is that, like, you have those one chores that are like one task. And then you have all the other chores that are like maintenance-y stuff. And as I was saying in my TikTok that I recorded this morning, that, like, they tell you the truth. Because I need to be balanced. There's only a certain amount of time you spend on your art. You can't actually be 24/7 on your art. And nobody expects you to be, by the way. Like, I'm kind of the CEO of reading hidden messages in artwork in 2024, at least according to my own mind, right? But I know I'm not the only person who's out doing this work. I'm not the only person who is, as Dave Matthews said, looking up at the sky with your mouth open wide. What's the use in hurrying? What's the use in worrying? What's the message there? From Dancing Nancy's by Dave Matthews Band. Here's what I think that message is: that if you actually gain the perspective to recognize that at most the biggest that you will ever be as one human, if you are both extremely lucky and extremely dedicated, is a star. The biggest you will be is one star. When people consider pinnacle human achievement, right? You might be called a superstar. Simone Biles is a superstar athlete, you know? Kendrick Lamar is a superstar rapper. Taylor Swift is a superstar songwriter. Beyonce, there's all these individuals that we like elevate, especially in creativity in the arts. Shakespeare or Francis Bacon, whatever, or a whole bunch of people. Because, like, who was Shakespeare? Historians are baffled. How could one person have done so much? Could it have been that person who actually did the shit? Who actually did it? Well, look up at the sky and your mouth is open wide, because you find out that, like, the most that any one star ever actually did was reflect on the constellations that already preceded them as a humble attempt to join the night sky. That's it. That's the name of the game. That's the name of the work. There has been a symphony. That's a good new popular song, right? I just want to be part of your symphony. That is the plea of the human, like of the human heart. The human heart yearns for belonging and connection. It wants to be part of the symphony, right? What does it mean to be part of a symphony, though? It means that you must play. Like, a symphony requires you to think about how specific that imagery is. Because a symphony is not a jam band. There's a fucking dress code. There's an expectation that you show up on time with others. There's an expectation that your instrument is tuned according to not your own desire to, hey, did I just invent a new tuning? Did I just invent a new genre? No, that's not part of your symphony thinking. Nobody, that's the ego. That's your insecure ego as an indie artist, and you're aware that your music still kind of sucks. So you're like, maybe it doesn't suck. Maybe if we think about it as a whole different kind of thing, that it's not. It's actually a hot one of those. There's an Upright Citizens Brigade episode where Amy Poehler is in like half monkey makeup and she's in a support group for ugly people. And then her boyfriend's like, hey, maybe you're not ugly. Maybe you're actually not a human. And you're actually a really hot one of those. And she's like, how's that going to make me feel any fucking... how's that going to make me feel any better? Yeah, I think that what's really interesting is the stars in the night sky illuminate in a very limited way. They only really are tiny points that like contrast against the darkness. And Kurt Elling, I think, refers to this as the universe's dark display in his performance of Resolution, which we went through last night. He talks about the universe's dark display, I believe, to talk about the duality of the night sky. That, like, the shining stars are these points of light that only really become visible in contrast to the inky blackness that separates them with a ton of space. Because I think the analogy here is that to be a human in the world is to be constantly threatened by the void of separateness, which the ego presents as an out from literally any tension and discomfort that you feel at any time in your life. The tiniest twinge of tension, and then there's a voice in your head going, man, they're just haters. They're not like you. They don't really want what's best for you. Here, come away with me. Be alone with me over here. Let's go take some time to ourselves. You and me, we really love ourselves the best. The ego can't take critique, and it can't take a compliment. It can't take excitement, and it can't handle boredom. It doesn't do good with anything. It doesn't do good with anything except lying. And the best lie that it tells you is that it is you. It is you. So whenever somebody on TikTok tells me, third, you never miss, There's a voice in my head that wants that to be true. And to say, ha, they're noticing how good you are. But didn't I upload my 6th take? Isn't the truth? 3rd, you missed 5 times before getting it right. What would that content look like? Would it be engaging enough for me to meet my material goals for my content? I already call it content all the time. It's art. But I'm not going to do the disclaimer of saddling and strapping on this explanation. You know what I mean? Like, hey, by the way, you know this is content, but did you know it's actually art? That's some facetious shit. At some point, you just become a prescriptivist. The language does what it does. And right now, the language has done content. Content creation. We could call it discontent creation, though, because that's actually what it really is. It's discontent creation because it creates discontentment by feeding my ego, and the means by which it feeds my ego is that I use my time to disrespect yours. This app is literally about trolling, because on 4chan, the goal of a troll is to write the fewest words to generate the biggest emotional response and the longest argument. Then you sit back and tell your friends, look at all of these lol cows that I brought around to chuckle at. Look how earnest they are. I wasn't even being fucking serious. Isn't that the ultimate gambling that we do on TikTok especially? Hey, I was just fucking around. I went viral. Turns out we're all not as good as we say we are, huh? Turns out that what people really want to see is the low effort stuff. Well, let me give you what you want, says the artist who's actually really terrified of, like, what if I do my best? What if I do my earnest best to join the symphony, to dress myself, to show up on time and in tune, to read the fucking sheet music, to pay attention to what the conductor is indicating? You don't get to be a part of the symphony with an ego. That's what's tricky. The reply to I just want to be part of your symphony is you can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, not if you try sometimes, if you try some time. In the last episode of Better Call Saul, he feeds a security guard a baked spiral, which the security guard always eats clockwise. He eats 1/4 of it, and then another quarter, and then another quarter, and then another quarter. And every time he does it, it takes him 3 minutes. 3 minutes is how long Saul's co-conspirator has to rob the department store. And there are various things that he has to rob. He has to rob Armani suits. He has to rob Air Jordan shoes. He has to rob Kate Spade bags. He has to rob cocktail gowns that glimmer like the stars in the night sky. And as he does it, he runs through a store across a chessboard. It's black and white. The shit seems allegorical as fuck to me, right? If the cinnamon bun is a day, right? If it's 24 hours of time, because he has him steal at least 20 things from the department store. They leave some stuff out. That's how you know that there really might be a code under the surface, is he doesn't spell out all 24 things. I really do think there's so much power living under the hood. I think there's actual fucking tarot magic living underneath music. I think the muse has a specific name. It's not just based on what everybody's ego wants. I think the muse is like a synonym for God on this fucking planet. And when people sing, I just want to be part of your symphony, then the respondent is Saul Goodman in the finale of Better Call Saul saying, oh, you want to play the game? Really? I'll let you in. I'll show you how. It's not going to be easy. There's stuff to do. We're going to have to go off and practice by ourselves. Guess what? The game involves practicing. You can't be part of the symphony if you're not woodshedding. You have to go, like, the woodshedding is a jazz term, okay? And I'm going with Better Call Saul real quick because sometimes people embody Drake traits and you realize, like, Drake is like an ego avatar. And so if you can spot where Kendrick would be angry at Drake for something in a music, that's like being in church and spotting where Jesus would be mad at the devil in the Bible and going, what's the point of me knowing this? Because just spotting something is the first step. And then going, I can integrate this into my life. So as Saul, who represents Drake or the ego, is driving around in a stolen car, he turns off Benny Goodman playing some jazz. And I think it's one of those things of like, I don't want to deal with jazz. Like Drake is not the kind of person, the ego is not the kind of person that would want to just sit and listen to some jazz. Because then you have to encounter that like these people are practicing. These people went into a woodshed. This didn't happen on accident. They're a tight-knit organism. They're a little mini symphony. Like a jazz trio or a jazz quartet, they dress up. They show up on time. They're in tune. If you're somebody just winging it, if you're just slipping jimmying your way through life, your ego is confronted and challenged to hear that music. You're like, I can't hear that shit. Turn that fucking shit off. You know what I mean? I just want to be part of your symphony. And then what did she say after that? I was just singing along to it because, Krish was singing it. He had that viral TikTok. Let me find the lyrics real quick. I just want to be part of your symphony. Will you hold me tight and not let go? Symphony, like a love song on the radio. Will you hold me tight and not let go? So notice, they specifically mention radio pop songs. And then right here, I'm sorry if it's all too much. Every day you're here, I'm healing. And I was running out of luck. I never thought I'd find this feeling. Because I've been hearing symphonies. Before, all I heard was silence. A rhapsody for you and me, and every melody is timeless. Now, a rhapsody for you and me there, it echoes. They put it in parentheses. When somebody says something in a song 2 times, that's a time that you should pay attention. They're telling you twice. They're doubling down. They're singing to you. They're singing to you. Not to you because you're schizophrenic. Not to you because you're bipolar and manic. They're singing to the same you that you have in your head, and they're singing it in their head. So when I get on TikTok and I look in the camera and I say, hey, that fucking ingrown hair right here, don't fuck with it. Don't try to pop this ingrown hair. You're going to inflame it. You're going to make it worse. Just go take a shower, scrub it with a washcloth, no big deal. Somebody's in the comments like, how did you know? How did you know I had a bad ingrown hair? It's like, no, I'm just talking to myself. I'm talking to myself. The you I'm talking to is always my own ego. If you think I'm talking to you when I'm singing to my own ego, you have an ego too. We're sharing a human experience. We're locked in the same fight. And I hope we both win. And guess how we won't? What if we start fighting each other instead? What if I do a whole era on here where I'm starting to catch patterns in Kendrick's songs about Drake, and I decide that the way that I need to be visible as I talk about this, because I have a mission. I have to save people. I'm a white knight riding through on the horse, and I need to let people know that I'm on the right side, and Drake's on the wrong side, because obviously he's done these crimes against kids, allegedly. That stuff doesn't change. The real things that we do in the world do not change, right? The actions that we take in the world, regardless of our own alignment with our brand, our ego's narrative, those actions, those are the prints we leave behind. That's the evidence of who we are that's left in the world. That's why people keep on talking about Prince versus Michael. There's like an allegory in there that Prince is like the deeds and Michael is like the words. Prince versus Mike. You see what I'm saying? Deeds versus words. The prints we leave versus the words that we amplify on a microphone. Mike versus Prince. Mike versus Prince. See what I'm telling you? So he sings the shit to Drake because Drake is a fitting avatar for his own ego, for the shit he needs to heal in himself. When Kendrick says, hey Drake, it's not a rap battle, it's a long life battle with yourself, he's speaking from experience. He's the guy that did the 6 years of therapy. He's the guy that lived with the trauma and processed it artistically without resorting to drugs and alcohol to help to kill the pain. Feeling the pain in all of its glimmer is like, you can't show up at the symphony like tripped out on opioids because you're going to be off time. There can only be one Nina Simone in any band. There can only be one singer who's so far behind the pocket that it turns into its own pocket. You know what I mean? Not everybody can show up and go, I've got my own different pocket. It's like if somebody with bad rhythm tries to make a beat with nothing quantized, it's like, man, you probably should have put a 4 on the floor kick in there or something, just so the listener knows where the 1 is, because you don't. But like, you should put a map in there or something. Anyways, and now your song is on repeat, and I'm dancing to your heartbeat, and when you're gone, I feel incomplete. So if you want the truth, I just want to be part of your symphony. So it's the heartbeat. And it's I just want. Notice, I just want. There, you have 2 eyes. You have an eye that wants and an eye that needs. And this is actually, when you die, those 2 eyes die with you. Why do you think the ghost emoji has the black eye? Hey, why do you think Saul Goodman gets a black eye in Better Call Saul? Hey, why do you think that the identity thief in the movie Influencer has a big birthmark over one of her eyes? Why do you think the mind-manipulating freak girl in the movie Freaks, about a family of freaks that hides out because they do freaky-ass things that manipulate people, including convincing kids to cuddle with you in bed? This is depicted from the perspective of the little girl, so it seems less bad than it is in the movie. But that little girl does have blood that comes out of her eye, and then they check it with UV light to make sure that the mark is there. And so there's this mark on this eye. There's an eye that you have that wants things, and every time the ego is challenged in a song, that eye gets paranoid and it spirals. Right? The famous actor, the microphone, the doer of deeds, the seer of needs, does not have that problem. That's the part of you that this eye sings to. And I think that's why Left Eye Lopez picked that as her brand. I think it's a reply to these. This is old shit, okay? If you study tarot, and I'm starting to study tarot because I really am trying to get as close to the bottom of the rabbit hole as I can, which means we have to dig down into the sub-basement of the collective human unconsciousness now. We have to become students of the humanities to carry the work of figuring out what is being asked of us in terms of like all of the tapestry of artistic differences, if we want to build a good podcast project. But the podcast is actually just a part of my 3rd person project, which is just a career that I'm doing as an actual person with an actual kid. So if in my search for the bottom of the rabbit hole, the chores stay undone, I'm failing in the actual work. Because talking about the work is not the work. Talking about the existence of the rabbit holes is not going digging for gold. The gold is within, and it's where your needs live. This song, there's an unrequited love, right? The singer of this song is not going to get what they want. They might get what they need if they try sometime. But if you just want to be part of a symphony, asking to be held tight and not let go of, why can't you hold? Why can't you grab the symphony? Because the ego's a fucking infant. Because the ego is a child. It's a baby. It needs to be held. It needs to be carried, okay? When there was one set of footprints on the sand, that was when I carried you. One aspect of the endless faces of God is this Jesus character, and he's on that bookmark in the little fucking Chicken Soup for the Soul story because of how resonant that story is. The story is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. That's your inner child in there. Because, like, right next to the little crying, squalling baby that needs to be carried through shit is the thing that's ready to do the carrying. There's the piece of us that's already in tune with our higher calling as people, with, like, the need to be symphonic, the need to dress ourselves and carry ourselves with dignity and pay attention and not just make sound come out of us, but to read what is required of us and to watch for the signals of when it is the right time to come in, because it's a group game. Ocean's 11 is not a movie about how Danny Ocean is so good at stealing that he doesn't need a team. Ocean's 11 is a movie about the miracle of what people can do against a system that is designed to always defeat them, against a house that is designed to always win. Hey, what is the difference between a house and a home? It's the difference between a casino and where the heart is. So when you hear house and home in music, you can think about want and need, right? You can think about the carrier, the carried versus the carrier, because it's the symphony, it's the song that carries. It's the stream that carries us along. And floating looks like swimming when you're going with the flow. And swimming looks like being in a fucking speedboat. I think that's what actually, like, maybe the fast car shit refers to. By the way that they cover up their heist crime in the finale of Better Call Saul is that when the landlord, when the mom I think is also an allegory, when she opens the garage to check what's going on, they're just working on a muscle car in there. They've got the hood popped. They're just working on a car. Hey, nothing to see here. It's just fast cars. If you know about the carport, says Pusha T, the trapdoor is supposed to be awkward. Yeah. So it's one of these things where, like, sorry, I have a pet hair in my mouth. This seems to be the hair of the little dog. Or it might be a fiber from the couch. But that happens. They get caught up in my mustache sometimes. So this song's Symphony. I just wanna be part of your symphony. Will you hold me tight, not let go? Like a love song on the radio. Right? Hey, there's a song called Love Song by Natasha Bedingfield. Let's review. Because I think we're going to see some ego versus self play in there, right? Oh, cool. So I think there's an artist annotation on this. Those are always really useful. Lyrically, the song is about love and how simple it can be. Oh, my bad. It's the wrong one. I was on These Words. I get Natasha Bedingfield and Sarah Bareilles confused. But These Words is good too. We can study that. I think I found it on accident because they're kind of... Part of my thesis is that because the self is love, and because the self is connectedness, and because the ego is fear and separation, then when you're hearing a song that comes from love, it echoes and it harmonizes with all of the other songs that do. And it's not just true for songs. It's true for shows, movies, theater. But yeah, head underwater and they tell me to breathe easy for a while. The breathing gets harder, even I know that. Yeah, it's okay. Notice here the breathing is repeated. It's two B's. Head underwater. And they tell me to breathe easy for a while. The breathing gets harder, even I know that. Made room for me. It's too soon to see if I'm happy in your hands. I'm unusually hard to hold on to. The thing I realized yesterday is that Slippin' Jimmy is slippery like a fish because the ego is slippery. It's hard to pin down. So if we reread this from the perspective of the ego singing to the self, I think it unlocks a layer. Head underwater. The ego lurks beneath the surface, and they tell me to breathe easy for a while. So somebody from outside of the person has given the person a signal that activates the ego, right? I've been lurking beneath the surface, and they tell me to breathe easy for a while. The breathing gets harder, even I know that. So the ego's like, sometimes I have to rear my ugly head, my ignorant baby brain, and I get to have my tantrum, and that gets called a song, because these artists write from their ego, they write from their own personal experience. That's the magic of the music. It's a balancing act. You want to be part of the symphony, and it's possible, but you have to try. There's a synthesis between the thing that is irrepressibly you, which is expressed as ego, and the everything that makes your self matter, like as a contrast and as a harmonization to the things that are. It's not as You're not as interesting as a solo act. Life is not as interesting as a solo pursuit. And so the ego is under the surface and it's ready to be summoned like a demon, right? You need to be possessed by your heart of hearts self. But then the thing is that as you surface and that heart of heart self is like speaking, "Ooh, yeah, look at me. I'm feeling myself right now." Now that you're out and you're actually dancing in the world and you're synthesized, you instantly grow. Like you instantly become somebody else. This kills the ego. Breathing gets harder. Even I know that. The ego's like, my whole life is to be just stuck in a dry freeze. I'm supposed to be constantly just a snapshot of what this person thinks of themselves. That's why the devil's frozen in hell. Because the ultimate betrayal is separation, like the deceit of like, I'm different from you, I'm so different from you, I don't have to respect you, I can call you a friend and stab you in the back. The reason that they put betrayers in hell and put them in ice is that the ego is a betrayer and the ego is a frozen point. So the ego is sitting there under the water, the breathing gets harder, even I know that. Made room for me, it's too soon to see if I'm happy in your hands. I'm unusually hard to hold on to. So obviously the surface layer of this is like, I am Sarah Bareilles, I'm working for a record label, they've put me on deadline, they want me to do this work. But it's hard for me to do that kind of work on demand. You want me to talk about love? With a deadline? Oh, come on. Blank stares at blank pages. No easy way to say this. You mean well, but you make this hard on me. These damn studios, they put us on these contracts. They make us, oh, you gotta have 3 good love songs by next month. Well, you don't even know what it takes. And you remember Slippin' Jimmy being told by Chuck that he's got to just put his nose to the grindstone and find a way to succeed that doesn't involve taking a shortcut or telling a lie. But he's unusually hard to hold on to. He's like, Chuck, you mean well, but you make this hard on me. I can't start doing the actual work of writing because there's no easy way to say it. There's no easy way to be part of the actual symphony of human creativity that comes from the ever-beating human heart. It's not easy because you have to give yourself to it. You have to take pieces of who you are that are precious and vulnerable, and you have to expose and explore those things. And it's much simpler to say, isn't there some ghostwriter who's already done this and I can just sing their stuff? Because my background is I'm an actor. Don't you see? That's my real skill set. Ever since I was a kid, I've been an actor. I'm being Drake now, right? This is me as Drake. I've been a child actor my whole life. And people tell me all the time that my portrayal of that character on Degrassi High was inspirational for them. People like me, they remember me as being somebody in a wheelchair. I obviously don't need a wheelchair, but I'll stand in that place. I'll stand in that place and I'll take that. Hey, by the way, at the end of Better Call Saul, when he's standing with Francesca in season 6, episode 9 in the parking lot of his new office, he's standing in the handicap spot. Like he's standing in the handicap spot. And I literally think that psychopath intuition, the guy who likes to play victim, is not just a double meaning about Drake's career in Degrassi High, but it's Kendrick's attack at his own ego. He looks inside himself and he knows in his heart of hearts as an artist, when you're good at words, when you're good at emotional control, you can be a very manipulative person. Let me sing the song that makes people feel sad for me. And you might have valid reasons. There might be real vulnerability in your heart that people should feel sad for. And then also, if you're singing the song to make people sad for you, so they give you something that you want, so that, here's the key, so that you don't have to try as hard. That's the evil right there. That's the part. That's the part that makes you a horrible fucking person when you feed it. It's that part. It's not having a need. It's not being able to express the need vulnerably. It's having a need met and then going, oh, cool. Now I can just focus on my wants again. Thank God. This is what people are so frustrated about when they hear certain Kamala Harris supporters talk, right? They're like, listen, you leftists, I just want to win this election so that I know I don't have to be afraid anymore. And then I want to go back to dinner with my friends. And if you guys want to still be mad online, that's your problem. It sounds callous because it is callous. These aren't people who are interested in continuing work beyond a certain point. They look ahead to the end of what they think the work is so that they can ignore what the rest of the work actually is. And I can see that in them and despise it in them because I do the same thing to myself. I get to a done point on a song where it's done enough to sell the song and I still hear polish mistakes. There's little things in there where I'm like, I could have done that whole take different. Should I reinvent? Nah, I gotta move forward. Just move forward. People like it enough. Eventually I'll get better. And I will, but it's a slower curve that way, you know? People will be in the comments and they're like, hey man, I don't know how you managed to still do this, but I really do feel like you shouldn't quit that day job if you still got one, because this is coworker music to me. I'm like, part of you is just having an ego reaction to me trying, and you're trying to shut me down. But there's also a grain of truth in it, and it's like, to the extent that I can find the thing that hurts me about a little heckle or a slight like that, I can actually introspect, I can search inside myself, and I can go, you know what? That second verse, it did sound a little blasty, didn't it? It was a little too saturated, a little too present. Could have used maybe some more reverb or delay. There's something between what I'm doing and what other music is doing where mine doesn't sound enough like the other music for people to like address it with credibility and to like listen for the content. I know there's gold in the stuff that I write, but just passively expecting other people to have extraordinary amounts of attention applied to it so they can dig up the gold for me, that's just a way for me to not try as hard. I need to try harder when I sit and write. I need to find where the gold is in my own heart and express that. Then I have to iterate again, make sure that the gold that is in my own heart being expressed harmonizes with the existent symphony that I have detected in the music. So that's one rewriting pass, just to make sure that I'm in tune. And that's where stuff like the bees come in, that's where stuff like the cars come in, that's where stuff like, diamonds come in. There's all these like little motifs and shit that you can signal to other symphonists, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to study, I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to apply. And that's not enough, because what if nobody hears it? Panda Bear sings doing it right. Everybody will be dancing if you're doing it right, and that's fucking true. Corollary, if you dig up your own gold and polish it until it gleams in the same color palette as the rest of the gold from the global gold mine that we've all been digging around in, but you can't hammer it into jewelry that anybody actually wants to wear and identify with their own ego, you're not doing it right yet. That's the final piece of the dance. When I say I'm literally just getting started as an artist, that's the part that I'm talking about. You can't scare the hose. You can't do it. That's the tricky shit. Because like MF Doom is exactly right in songs like Belize and Ballskin and Lightworks and Operation Lifesaver and Deep Fried Friends about the shape of the symphony. But there's a whole group of people that are never going to be able to figure out that that MF Doom, the MF Doom is also, for different reasons, right? The reason that people won't figure out that MF Doom is doing symphony shit is slightly different, but related to the reason that people might not ever figure out where Eminem is doing his symphony shit. Rakim is doing his symphony shit. He names it God Network Rebirth. Because he's like, I'm an old head. Who the fuck cares what I call this album? I'll just call it what it is. There's a certain type of old autistic rapper, and most rappers are autistic, by the way. That's where you get that way about words. It's not something that you spend enough time at to get good at if echolalia is not already like a hard axis in where your dopamine center lives. But anyway, Rakim is able to just get up on a stage and go, yeah, man, this is the rebirth of the God Network. And people are like, dope. These hoteps, right? They're always talking about God and Anunnaki and all this other weird shit. Who gives a fuck, right? It's brilliant, man. It's like, look, the your higher self, the version of you that you always knew that you could be, the mundane one too. There's no look, I'm not selling a fucking ebook. I'm not trying to make you a shiny version of yourself. I'm not trying to make you any kind of version of yourself. I'm just excited because I see the potential where I still have time because I'm listening to the music and I hear that people are trying to save me from myself, the part of myself that thinks it's myself, the specific ego part. But just like Slumdog Millionaire, it's like I've had these experiences. I already know. I had a full-time scholarship for Michigan State University, the Alumni Distinguished Scholarship. They only give out 15 every year. You got to be smart. Like you have to. Here's the thing about that scholarship. It's not like the ACT. There's real facts on there. They're like, which of the following was not a factor of the society in Salem, Massachusetts in the years that led up to the Salem witch trials? Which was not a factor. I remember that question clearly. Why do I remember that question clearly? I answered that question when I was 16. I don't know if I got the right answer. I'm autistic, and so I hold on to that kind of stuff. It doesn't get pruned out of my memory space. I remember these specific details of questions, but I got this scholarship because I remember these specific details. Because like somewhere I had read some random article about the witch trial or something, and I was like, I have actually an idea about which two things this isn't. So then for other people, it's like a 1 in 4, and I have coin flips all through that. I get this scholarship because I'm a pretty good gambler, because I'm pretty good at guessing. I'm really intuitive at figuring out when a human being wrote something for me to detect where the right answer is. I know how people sound when they're lying. I have the Natasha Leone thing from Poker Face a little bit. So when I do a standardized test, the way that I get this like full ride scholarship is just by sitting there and looking at the test and not even thinking about the test. I'm thinking about the person that wrote the test, and I'm thinking about why they wrote this line with slightly clunkier subject-verb agreement than they wrote this line. I know that line can't be the right answer because they didn't spend that much time thinking about it. This line might be the right answer, and so might these two. But I rule one out. That's how I take tests. But that's how the ego takes tests. That's how the ego takes a test. That's a Slippin' Jimmy approach to test taking. That's a poker player who doesn't care about what their cards are as much as the weaknesses of the others around the table. I watched Ink Master one year, and there was a black tattooist who was insecure about his own tattoo skills relative to the group. So he systemically trolled people. He'd pick people out one by one and start personal spats with them, personal ego battles with them, which would draw the person into trying to make a stunt pick on their canvas. They'd pick the worst person that they should tattoo just to piss off this black guy on the other side of the room, and then they'd do the worst tattoo that they'd ever done that week, and then head to head they'd be the one that went home and not him. He found a way to always be the second worst instead of trying to be the best. And I don't, if you get a full ride scholarship and you're the 15th best, you get the same amount of money as if you were the best person. What's really tragic about it is that I'm not a Jimmy. I'm not a Saul Goodman. I'm absolutely a Kim Wexler. This is the question that Kendrick Lamar asks in Damn. Is it wickedness or is it weakness? Because Howard Hamlin says, Jimmy, there's something just broken in you. But Kim, you're almost worse. Because you're doing this for glee, but you have the ability to go a different way with it. Like, I was able to answer a lot of those questions and get that scholarship right because I do attend to my study, and I do read, and I do remember, and I'm curious about information. I'm not always the person that doesn't want to try. I'm actually the person that loves to try. I'm an effortful and an earnest and a joyful soul when I leave the ego out of it. When I dive into the work with a spirit of willingness and I remind myself, eventually, I'll quiet down and just become the work. And the work is where the love is. I find the love in the work quickly when I start doing the work. And I can attend to the work for a very long time once I've started doing the work. But it is hard for me to start doing the work because I'll tell myself all of these stories. All of these stories that always amount to, and here's why it turned out I didn't have to try so hard actually. So I got the full ride scholarship, right? And then I just didn't go to class because it was like the first time in my life that I didn't have to, because I wasn't being compelled to. There wasn't like a school building with compulsory attendance. I could sit in my dorm. I could miss a class. I needed to, it was so stressful. Like it's all the way across campus. I'm not even sure the way. So like you don't go to the class on the first day because of all the social anxiety stuff that you've never actually had to like fail to before. You've never actually been able to be weak because your parents ran a pretty tight ship. And you can call them narcissistic if you want to, and maybe they are somewhat. But also, when they got divorced, didn't you kind of take that as a reason to not push yourself through all of your difficult junior year of high school classes? Like if you really go back and read yourself for filth and ask yourself wickedness or weakness, I think the good news is it's just weakness for most of us. I really don't think that there's a whole lot of wicked people in the world. We do know that like if somebody is minor attracted and they're also the type of person that's going to act on their attraction to minors, that's a wicked person. We all kind of agree on that as a society. We agree that those are some of the most dangerous people. A lot of the people who are attracted to minors find themselves feeling suicidal about it, right? They're like, oh my god, my weakness is making me separate from society. I wish I didn't have this like demonic desire inside of me. I'm going to have to spend my whole life, in therapy pushing against that. But then if you have somebody who's got that dark attraction and they're also willing to act on it and they're like, maybe I should become a priest. Maybe I should become a cop. Maybe I should become a teacher. Maybe I should work at a daycare. I should seek out places that give me access to a big pool of victims. That's just wickedness. At the end of Better Call Saul, which I'm spoiling now because it's been long enough, but at the end of Better Call Saul, he runs a scam on an old lady. He cuts her electric wheelchair. Like, cuts the cord of the wheelchair while he's pretending to help her so that she needs his help. Just so that he can get into her house, so that he can meet her son. He takes her out of her mobility aid, basically. Like, he literally cuts her legs off. And isn't that interesting? King Kunta, everybody want to cut the legs off me. There's an image that's being shared there. That's a harmonization. But he cuts off her ability to move herself just to enter into a state that he can start running the scam. And the whole purpose of the scam is just so that he can entrap somebody else in a crime. He pulls off a crime under witness protection, taking the biggest fucking risk you could imagine right at his workplace, right next to where he makes his money. Pulls it off like absolutely fucking brazenly. And it's just to make it so his co-conspirators will never tell anybody else that they recognize him from the lawyer commercials in New Mexico. It's just an entrapment scheme. And that reminds me of the Buried Alive interlude. If you was in a pine box, right? I would try to break the locks. Drake responds in Buried Alive interlude part 2 that if you were in a pine box, I would try to shovel dirt on top. I understand that people had this theory in May that Drake and Kendrick are both performing a drama. Like, there's people who have been in my comments in early and mid-May going, the studios are basically using Kendrick and Drake as puppets to have a fake fight that draws us in and makes us forget about Gaza. I've heard that. And I know the people who said it believed it. And I know also that people have gone into the ER schizophrenically or psychotically believing that a tree is growing in their stomach. And there's not a tree growing in their stomach, but later on they do some scans and they find that there is a stomach cancer. And so the mind that doesn't have the words for what's going on, but still has a gut feel that something is wrong, can speak to the shape of things. I don't think the shape of things is that Drake is purposefully pretending to be a big danger to minors that people enjoy laughing at all summer long so that they can keep us from caring about Gazan kids enough. I think what's actually happening is that Kendrick is calling out shit that he sees as problems of the ego, right? That the ego wants to box you in. The same way that you listen to an artist and go, well, is the artist a perfect person? Then I don't have to listen to what they have to say. You and your ego will go, well, are you a perfect person? Then I guess you don't have to worry about finishing music that would make you a slightly better one today. Better just sit back and find a way to try a little less. So if Kendrick is singing this like ego song to Drake, and Drake is singing like a self song back to him, like Kendrick singing as self to ego, if you were in a pine box, I would try to break the locks. Like if I saw that you were stuck. And I could also, here's a great example too. Going back to that movie Revolver with Guy Ritchie, because Jason Statham's character is in solitary and he's between two other prisoners, and they're all boxed in, but the prisoners that he's next to are dedicated to breaking him out. They're trying they're trying to teach him the secrets of the con of the ego while they're in literal prison together, so that later on he can go through this like enlightenment process. I can't express enough how good of a movie Revolver is and how much it opens up in music and art around it if you know where to look. But yeah, I think that what happens is people look from the outside in at this very very stark dynamic where it seems like Kendrick, by being more masterful of himself than Drake has become, is able to bait Drake into admitting words first. Like he says Epstein first in the beef. He says Millie Bobby Brown first in the beef. Stuff that people are thinking about, stuff that is on people's minds, stuff that the ego responds to. Because like the Millie Bobby Brown story and the Epstein story are both stories where like when you read those stories, you get to kind of chip in. You get to have an opinion and a say on things, but it's like really low stakes and you don't actually have to like give up anything, because like Epstein's a monster. If you can find a monster and you can point out a monster, then you don't actually have to do anything, because like you already did the right thing. Look, you pointed out a monster, you made the world safer. It's like laundering. It's like your ego has set up a non-profit for you to raise awareness. You're raising hey, remember about people who are, did you know that over in I think it was Libya, they just killed one of the biggest human traffickers. Oh, interesting. Well, I guess that means the world's a slightly better place now. Is it though? Because that's two people that just stopped at talking about a problem and none of them drew a conclusion. Let's stop the next human trafficker from being able to get that big. Like, at no point in telling that story was there any individual call to growth or change. So what's the purpose of the story? Ego food. Let's talk about the guy that's worse than us and he's dead now. Oh, cool. Awesome. Hey, what if that guy that's worse than you that's dead now was just you yesterday, though? Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be cool? If you just had a trail of bodies behind you, every day you wake up and there's a corpse that was you and they're right there in bed, and you leave them. And as you get out of bed, as your feet hit the floor, that old body, that old bastard disintegrates. He's gone. He's finished. And then as you go through the day thinking that you're doing something with yourself, thinking that you've learned shit, oh shit, he's right back over your shoulder again. And he's whispering in your ear, and he's like, take a break, you've done so much. Oh man, they're gonna really appreciate this. How about we daydream for a little about how good this might turn out now that we're in the middle of the work? It's not a distraction, it's just a reward. Treat yourself. Don't you deserve a little treat right now? Hey, I bet you there's somebody who's told you how good you are in your phone, right in your notifications. Why don't you go check? Hey, and maybe there's some news. You know, if there's no notification about how good you are, maybe there's some news about how bad the world is by comparison. And so then you can get worked up, not about the growing tension that you're still ignoring your fucking work right now, my guy. You're talking to these nice people on TikTok instead of finishing Corn Sweat. It's all right, though. Cause look at what you've learned, and look at what you've been able to express. You did it, buddy. You did a podcast episode again. It got up on YouTube and everything. Oh, I mean, you did forget to like link it on Patreon beforehand. Looks like you cut another corner, but that's all right. Progress, not perfection, right? Progress, not perfection, right? Nobody who says I won't be perfect is practicing hard enough. That's my opinion on practice. That's what the woodshed is. The thing about whiplash is that if somebody else's ego is dominating you and he's abusing you into pushing yourself way too hard, that's a completely different dynamic. But if you internally are your own Zen master and you use a real metronome, not to play mind games with yourself, right? Not to convince yourself that you don't really know what 200 BPM feels like, but to actually learn what 200 BPM feels like. There's a difference there. J.K. Simmons lying to Miles Teller about what 200 is, because the real battle is that Miles Teller thinks that his ego is more powerful than J.K. Simmons's. That scene is distinct from the actual experience of becoming Benny. I said Benny Goodman earlier. It's Benny Green, becoming the Benny Green who sings about like lying down in the grass in that jazz song that Jimmy McGill doesn't want to listen to. Sorry, Saul Goodman, whatever he's calling himself these days. And isn't that the same as like the Drake indictment too? That like people don't even know your real name, man. I know that the spiritually psychosed are like, that's because Drake is literally a demon on this planet. And look, if you've done things, what's the difference? Like, does it matter if somebody has actually hurt a kid in that way that's alleged, does it matter if the devil made them do it, or does it matter that the deed was done? If the devil is just a stand-in for the ego, is describing the actor doing anything about who was acted upon? Does me analyzing for you all of the ways that I hear Drake begging to be caught for his crimes and his music, does that actually catch him? We'll explore that in future episodes, because that is what I feel like my part of this podcast work is. The podcast needs to have a goal. The goal is to put an end to the evil in the world. But to put an end to the evil in the world, which is indeed the goal of all art, we have to start with the evil within. We have to start with the enemy that is the inner me, the one that alleges that it is us. The first revolver in the ultimate revolution, right, is the Russian roulette kind of revolver. Isn't that interesting too? There's 6 rounds in that like typical image. It's the 1 in 6 chance. It's the same as the die roll. Every time you let the ego win, you're rolling the dice. I think that's part of what this symphony lyrics talk about. Something about gambling, time to run out. I think it's about life as like allegory. I'll find it here again. Yeah, every day you're here, I'm healing. And I was running out of luck. I never thought I'd find this feeling. I think that the devil is the gambler. You know, I think that the ego and the evil is associated with the number 6 for various like cosmo reasons that I probably can't crack into the root of. But I do think that when people ask, like when Colin Hay says, let me throw one more dice, I know that I can win. I'm waiting for my real life to begin. I think it's that same gambler fallacy of like, yeah. So, you know how I say that insanity and focused practice are the same? That like doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, can be insanity on one side of the coin, and on the other side of the coin, it's focused practice, right? So I think here it's like, some of us practice and some of us roll dice. Given an hour to make money, I could make TikToks hoping that one of the TikToks blows up and gets in front of enough people who are enthralled with the appearance and the brand that I've cultivated to help support my need to pay my family's mortgage today, or tomorrow, or the next day. And I can keep doing that. I can do it with the words. But what if I spend 4 more days figuring out how to get the mortgage paid, and on none of those 4 days I actually pick up my guitar and play anything? Then what happens the next time that I'm broke? It's not going to be any faster for me to finish the next song that uses guitar, because I haven't been like I'm not betting on myself, which means that I really am just gambling. You know what I mean? Like betting on the brand is not the same as betting on yourself. The brand is the ego aspect of me. Like, there was a time that my TikTok was myself. That, like, there was more self-human of me on TikTok, and it's because I was stressed about work and I was finding little time to hide my love away. I'm in the bathroom and I'm coming up with an original joke, and it feels like theft. Great artists steal. I've found a way to move in and out between the Zoom meetings and my own tasks, and I'm carving out these little glimmers of light through the inky void of interminable labor for a boss. And from that void, I'm shining out these little beams of mirth and gratitude into the world. But then the second that it becomes your full-time job to do, this is the Zoom call. And then in between the Zoom call, it's like, who am I now? And then you realize that sometimes the hide and seek player is not the self at all. It's the ego playing at the self and just enjoying hiding and tricking. So it's like cops and robbers versus hide and seek. You know, is it adversarial or is it a shared game? Oh, family meeting. That's right. Labor Day family meeting. I gotta hop off. Yeah, then it's time theft from yourself. You got it exactly right. Exactly right. Every day that I wake up and I don't give myself the time, at least, that I was taking away from my bosses to make TikToks, I'm just the next boss that I'm treating like a chump. And the first boss that you treat like a chump is actually yourself. That's the game. Like, there's so much stuff in pop culture where if you re-watch from the perspective of what you learn through the whole story, like Better Call Saul shows you, like, you might think that Chuck is petty and tyrannical and driven by ego. Ultimately, though, to the extent that he's trying to call Jimmy into a higher self, to the extent that he's disappointed that Jimmy is not answering the call, he's acting as a moral soul. And Jimmy can say, I spent the time. I went to correspondence school and I got the law degree. And for a while it can look like, yeah, he's industrious. He cares. He's Charlie Hustle, nose to the grindstone. But, like, after that year off where he can't be a lawyer and he has to fight to be a lawyer again, it becomes very clear that he's just managing human expectation. The second that the tension is done and he doesn't have to try to manage expectation anymore, he gushes to Kim like, oh, I really put one over on him. I told him exactly what they needed to hear to get back moving. And that erodes us. You can, like, that's the thing about that's why I think they call it gambling, because when you get away with that, when you lie, you gamble. When you get away with a lie, you end up with the exact same moral hazard that a gambler who wins on their first attempt gets, which is, what if you have your expected values wrong now because you got lucky, and now you think that this lie has an expected positive value, when actually the lie always had an expected negative value, and eventually your luck will just run out, and then you're going to pay more, you know? The ego wants to tell you that, like, other people are like a bank with a glitch, and if you just find a way to pass bad checks with them, then eventually you can have more than them and you didn't have to try so hard. What a cool glitch to exploit. But that's just fraud. That's just lying. In the actual bank, they find their way home every time. They'll find, like, your name's in there. They'll get you. And that's one flavor of what karma is. Another flavor of what karma is, though, is that if you have a plan to steal from a place and there's a scuff on the floor, you might slip on the scuff. It might botch the theft. It might not have been your fault, but you did set out to do something extraordinarily difficult. How sure were you? Things happen. How sure were you that the plan was going to go? Did you do all the prep? Did you run the routes? Did you do the practice? Did you sing the songs to yourself? Cool. It still might not work out because life is a gamble. Everything life is a gamble. Let's finish there. God by Kendrick Lamar. Tie it together with K Dot. And then I have to go to this family meeting in 2 minutes. Be very quick with it. Fuck is you talking to? Hey, who do you know who you talking to? Slide on you like fallen drapes. God toss full of carnivals. I kill him with kindness, or I kill him with diamonds, or I put up like 1,500, get your ass killed by the finest. Everything life is a gamble. Nothing in life I can't handle. Seen it all, done it all, felt pain more. For the cause I done put blood on sword. Everything I do is to embrace y'all. Everything I write is a damn 8-ball. I hope your August was good, by the way. Everything I hope it was infinitely good. Everything I touch is a damn gold mine. Everything I say is from an angel. I don't rush shit, fuck shit, always your shit, my shit. Cannonballs to ignite shit. Morning to the night shift, I'm on. I ain't sorry for it. Asked for a peace of mind, you charged me for it. I want to see sometimes if you ignore it. I'm in the streets sometimes and can't afford it. I got a bad habit. Levitating. Ducking haters. Oh my heart is rich. My heart is famous. God with a bad habit. That's what I think he's singing about. I think he's singing that whenever a human is born, that's God addicted to being separate. Oh, I gotta lie to myself again. I gotta take that gamble. Let's roll a new tune. Let's see. Oh man, third world. This is gonna be a tricky run. Fuck. Oh god. This is gonna be one of those that makes me just want to quit the fucking game. Maybe I didn't make this game right. I don't know. Let's take our chances. Let's see what happens. Because he says, like, I'm in the streets sometimes and can't afford it. Now, that's a great double meaning, because that could mean that, like, God sometimes takes on the body of a homeless man, as we see in, like, a movie like Dogma. It can also, because every single song on Damn is a mirror to Drake. Drake is sometimes in the streets and can't afford it, right? Extortion, my middle name. As soon as you walk off that plane, bitch. I think that part might also be singing to the ego, saying, guess what? When you come up for air, breathing will get harder. I'm going to extort you. I'm going to squeeze you. Breathing gets harder, says the ego. Even I know that, because the ego's down there is just one snapshot. He's down in the underwater, in the sunken place. But he sees these little wisps, these shapes, and it's all of the formerly bloated carcasses of past egos dancing like jellyfish in the dark waters. And hey, when you look at the Fool Tarot card, doesn't it kind of look like he's wearing the deflated world as a jacket? Anyways, I'll see y'all later on. Take care. I've got links in my bio. 616 is where I rep. And you can find good Grand Rapids pro-trans t-shirts, by the way, at Transfigure Print Co. And your money goes and supports real mutual aid efforts in my hometown, or GR. I'm a third person with 3 eyes at Cash App, Ko-Fi, Venmo, and PayPal. And I'm third person, .bandcamp.com and patreon.com/third person is where you will be able to get a link to this episode in a little bit once I get it fully linked up on the Patreon. But right now I gotta go do this family meeting, which I'm a minute late for. I'm trying to stay on time. Love you guys too. Love myself more, and I'm trying to love the real self most. See ya.